My parents didn't show up at my wedding because they said it was my sister's birthday and they can't miss her party. I immediately stopped taking care of their financial needs. But what happened next was such a big surprise to everyone. Hello. Thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Andrew from Seychelles. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's dive into the details of today's story. The air smelled like lilies and rain that morning, the kind of damp sweetness that sticks to your skin and promises something beautiful. I stood in front of the cracked mirror in the little dressing room, tugging at the lace sleeves of my gown second hand, but I'd made it mine with a needle and thread. My hands trembled, not from nerves about marrying Daniel, but from the hope that they'd show up. Mom and Dad. I texted them last night, one last plea. Please, just come for the ceremony. It's at 2. Sophie's party can wait an hour. No reply. Just silence, thick as the fog rolling in outside. I'd spent years picturing this day. Not the dress or the vows, but their faces, Dad's gruff nod, Mom's teary smile as I walked down the aisle. They owed me that much. I'd been their ATM, their errand girl, their lifeline since I was old enough to sign a check. 3 years ago, I drained my savings to cover Dad's knee surgery when he refused to file for aid. Last summer, I worked double shifts at the diner so Mom could keep her precious garden club membership while the mortgage loomed. All I asked was this one day. 1 hour. For me. The venue was a converted barn, all weathered wood and fairy lights Daniel had strung up himself. He grinned at me that morning, his tie crooked, hazel eyes bright. You're glowing, Maya, he'd said, and I'd almost believed him. 50 chairs lined the aisle, a modest crowd, his parents, my coworkers, a few cousins who hadn't picked sides yet. I'd saved 2 seats in the front row, right by the arbor where Pastor Jen would bind us together. 2 empty seats with little handwritten cards, reserved for Robert and Linda Pierce. At 1:55, I peeked through the barn doors, my bouquet of daisies wilting in my grip. The gravel lot was half full, cars gleaming wet from the drizzle. No sign of Dad's rusty pickup or Mom's prim sedan. My stomach twisted, but I told myself they were late. They'd skid in, flustered, Mom fussing with her hat, Dad muttering about traffic. They wouldn't miss this. Not after everything. The clock hit 2 o'clock. Daniel squeezed my hand backstage, his calloused fingers steadying me. You ready, love? He whispered. I nodded, throat tight, and the guitar started, some soft melody he'd picked because it reminded him of our first date. I stepped out, the barn doors creaking open, and 50 heads turned. Smiles, claps, a few gasps at the dress I'd stitched late into too many nights. I forced a smile back, my eyes darting to those 2 chairs. Empty. The aisle stretched forever, each step heavier than the last. My heels sank into the wood, a dull thud-thud against the music. Daniel stood under the arbor, beaming, oblivious to the hole carving itself into my chest. I scanned the room again. Maybe they'd slipped in late, sat in the back. Nothing. Just cousins whispering, Aunt Claire dabbing her eyes, and those damned empty seats staring at me like a slap. Halfway down, my phone buzzed in the little pocket I'd sewn into the dress. Stupid, I know, but I'd kept it on vibrate, just in case. I faltered, Daniel's brow furrowing as I fumbled it out with one hand, clutching the daisies with the other. A notification lit the screen. Sophie Pierce posted a photo. My sister. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. There she was, mid-laugh, a sparkler in one hand, a drink in the other. Balloons everywhere, pink and gold, and Mom's arm around her, grinning like it was the proudest day of her life. Dad in the background, slicing a cake, Sophie's cake. The caption, best 25th ever. Family knows how to party. Timestamped 1:58 p.m. The phone slipped, clattering to the floor. Daniel lunged for it, but I waved him off, my vision blurring. They weren't stuck in traffic. They weren't running late. They'd chosen her. Again. Always her. The guitar faltered, then picked back up, and I realized I'd stopped walking. Everyone was staring past her, Jen, Daniel, the whole room holding its breath. I wanted to scream, to hurl the daisies at those empty chairs and watch the petals scatter. Instead, I straightened, locked eyes with Daniel, and finished the walk. The vows were a blur. I do, I said, my voice steady even as my heart splintered. Daniel's I do was warm, solid, and for a second, I could breathe. We kissed, the crowd cheered, and I let myself sink into him, pretending it was enough. But as we turned to face everyone, those chairs mocked me. Empty. Reserved for no one. The reception was louder, laughter, clinking glasses, Daniel twirling me to some old jazz tune. I smiled through it, cutting the cake we'd baked together, dodging questions about mom and dad. They couldn't make it. I lied, over and over, until the words tasted like ash. Around 8 p.m., I slipped outside, the drizzle now a full rain, soaking my dress as I stood under the barn's overhang. Daniel found me there, his jacket over my shoulders, his arms pulling me close. They didn't come, I whispered, the first time I'd said it out loud. He didn't ask who. He knew. Sophie's birthday. That's what they picked. He swore under his breath, soft but sharp. After everything you've done for them? Maya, don't. I cut him off. Don't say it. Because if he did, if he named how wrong it was, I'd break. And I couldn't break. Not yet. We stood there, rain drumming on the roof, his warmth seeping into me. I thought of the checks I'd written, the nights I'd gone hungry so they wouldn't. The way Dad called me the responsible one, like it was a leash, while Sophie got parties and praise for breathing. I thought of Mom's excuses, her sighs, her Sophie needs us more. And I thought of those chairs, empty as their promises. I'm done, I said, barely audible over the storm. Daniel pulled back, searching my face. I'm cutting them off. No more money. No more anything. He didn't argue. Didn't tell me to think it over. He just nodded, his hand tightening on mine. Whatever you need, I'm here. The rain kept falling, washing away the lily's scent, the day's hope. Inside, the party roared on, but out here, something shifted. I wasn't their daughter anymore, not the one who fixed everything, who paid for their lives. I was just Maya, and for the first time, that felt like enough to start with. The first call came 3 days after the wedding, while Daniel and I were sprawled on the couch in our cramped apartment, half-unpacked boxes stacked around us like a fortress. I'd muted my phone since the reception, dodging the flood of, "Where were your parents?" texts from nosy relatives. The screen lit up, "Dad," and my stomach lurched like I'd swallowed a stone. Daniel glanced over, his arms still slung around me, and muttered, "You don't have to answer." But I did. Some part of me, the part that still remembered Dad teaching me to ride a bike, his big hands steadying the wobbly frame, wanted to believe he'd call to apologize. To say he'd messed up, that Sophie's glitter-dusted tantrum hadn't been worth missing my vows. I swiped the screen, pressed it to my ear, and braced myself. "Maya Jane Pierce, what the hell do you think you're doing?" His voice boomed, gravelly and pissed, like I'd dented his truck instead of stopped a bank transfer. No hello, no how's married life. Straight to the attack. I sat up, the couch springs creaking under me. "Good to hear from you too, Dad. How was Sophie's party? Don't you sass me, girl. Your mother's been crying all morning because you canceled the auto pay on the mortgage. You trying to put us on the street." The mortgage. Of course. Not the wedding. Not the empty chairs. Not the way I'd stood there holding daisies and a broken heart. I laughed, sharp, bitter, nothing like the sound I'd made cutting cake with Daniel. "I'm not paying for your house anymore. Or your bills. Or anything. I told you I was done." "Done?" He barked a laugh, louder than mine, meaner. "You don't get to be done with family, Maya. We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head, and I've paid it back 10 times over." My voice cracked, louder than I meant, and Daniel's hand found my knee, grounding me. "I've been your bank account since I was 22, Dad. I skipped college so you wouldn't lose the house. I worked doubles while Sophie partied her way through 3 majors she never finished. And you couldn't even show up to my wedding because her birthday was more important." Silence. For a second, I thought he'd hung up, but then I heard his breath, heavy and ragged. "That's not fair," he said finally, quieter but edged with venom. "Sophie's sensitive. She needed us. You're strong, Maya. You always have been. We figured you'd understand." Understand. The word hit like a slap, hot and stinging. I stood, pacing the tiny living room, dodging a box labeled kitchen stuff in Daniel's messy scrawl. "I'm not a machine, Dad. I needed you too. 1 day, 1 hour. And you picked her cake over my vows." "You're twisting this," he snapped. "We didn't pick anything. It was bad timing, that's all. You're making a mountain out of bad timing. I stopped pacing, my free hand balling into a fist. You knew for months. I begged you to come. You didn't even call to say you wouldn't. He huffed like I was the unreasonable one. We're not perfect, all right? But this, cutting us off, it's spiteful. Ungrateful. After all we've done for me? I cut in, my voice rising again. What have you done for me lately, Dad? Tell me. When's the last time you asked how I'm doing instead of how much I can send? Another pause, longer this time. I could picture him in their cluttered kitchen, his thick brows furrowed, that stubborn set to his jaw I'd inherited. You listen, he said, slow and deliberate. You've got one chance to fix this. Put the money back on, apologize to your mother, and we'll forget this nonsense. If you don't, you're out. No family, no inheritance, nothing. I'll write you off like you never existed. The threat landed heavy, a brick through glass. My breath caught, and Daniel stood, hovering close, his eyes dark with worry. I wanted to scream, to cry, to tell Dad he couldn't do this. But he could. He'd always been the king of ultimatums, wielding guilt like a scepter. I swallowed hard, tasting salt and fury. Then do it, I said, quieter now, steady. Disown me. I don't need your house or your name if it comes with strings. You don't mean that, he growled. You'll regret this, Maya. You'll come crawling back when you realize what you've lost. Goodbye, Dad. I hung up before he could reply, my thumb shaking as I hit the button. The phone buzzed again instantly, him calling back. But I tossed it onto the couch, letting it vibrate itself silent. Daniel pulled me into him, his shirt smelling faintly of sawdust and the rain from our wedding night. You okay? He murmured into my hair. No, I admitted, my face pressed to his chest. But I will be. That night, the text started. Mom first. How could you do this to us, Maya? Your father's beside himself. We're your family. No mention of the wedding. No sorry. Just more guilt, her specialty. Then Sophie, a voice memo because she couldn't be bothered to type. Wow, Maya, real classy. Freaking out over a party? Grow up. Mom and Dad are a mess because of you. Her voice dripped with that smug lilt she'd perfected by 16, the baby who'd never had to earn a damn thing. I deleted it without replying, but the words clawed at me. Freaking out over a party. Like it was nothing. Like I hadn't spent years propping them up while she danced through life on my dime. I lay awake, Daniel snores soft beside me, replaying Dad's threat. Write you off like you never existed. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it also lit something in me, a spark I hadn't felt before. If they could erase me so easily, maybe I could erase them too. The next morning, I found a letter slid under our door. No stamp, just my name in Dad's blocky handwriting. I opened it with Daniel over coffee, the kitchen still half-boxed chaos. Inside, one paragraph typed on their ancient printer. As of this day, Maya Jane Pierce is no longer our daughter. She has chosen selfishness over family. All ties are severed. Robert and Linda Pierce. I stared at it, the paper trembling in my hands. Daniel cursed, loud enough to startle the neighbor's dog barking outside. They're insane, he said, snatching the letter to read it again. They can't mean this. They do, I whispered. And they did. I knew it in my bones. Their pride was bigger than their love. I folded the letter, tucked it into a drawer I'd never open again, and met Daniel's eyes. It's over. He hugged me, fierce and protective, but I didn't cry. Not yet. The spark was growing, warming the cold ache in my chest. They disowned me, sure. But I disowned them first in my head, in my heart, the second I'd hung up that phone. And for the first time in years, I felt untethered. Free, maybe, or at least on my way there. The first morning I woke up without the weight of their bills on my shoulders, I didn't know what to do with myself. Sunlight slanted through the blinds of our apartment, catching dust motes over the coffee table, and I just sat there, mug in hand, staring at the steam curling up like it held answers. Daniel was already out, off to his carpentry gig, leaving me with the quiet and a bank account that, for once, wasn't bleeding dry. I'd spent so long funneling every spare dollar to Mom and Dad. Mortgage, utilities, Sophie's endless emergencies. That freedom felt like a stranger crashing on my couch. Unfamiliar, uncomfortable, but mine. I started small. Took the $200 I'd have wired them that week and bought a used mixer instead. A beat-up, cherry red thing from a thrift shop, its motor growling like a lawnmower. Baking had always been my escape. Back when I'd need dough at 3 a.m. after diner shifts, the smell of yeast drowning out Dad's lectures about duty. Mom used to scoff at it. A hobby's not a living, Maya. But with her voice out of my head, I let myself dream. What if it could be? What if I could build something just for me? That spring, I turned our kitchen into a battlefield. Flour dusted every surface, butter stained my jeans, and the oven ran hot enough to make the windows sweat. I tested recipes, sourdough that cracked just right, cinnamon rolls gooey with brown sugar, lemon tarts sharp enough to wake you up. Daniel played guinea pig, grinning through sticky fingers, his babe, this is gold, spurring me on. By May, I'd saved enough from my diner tips to rent a booth at the farmer's market. Maya's Morsels, I called it, scribbling the name on a chalkboard sign with hands that shook, not from fear, but from something alive, something hungry. The market was chaos. Kids chasing balloons, dogs sniffing at my table, the air thick with coffee and kettle corn. My first day, I sold out in 3 hours. A woman with a gray braid bought 6 scones, said they reminded her of her nanas, and I nearly cried right there behind the cash box. Strangers smiled at me, handed over crumpled bills, asked when I'd be back. No guilt trips, no "you owe us." Just people liking what I made. It was small, but it was mine, and it grew week by week, loaf by loaf. Daniel's family swooped in like I'd been theirs forever. His mom, Ellen, a wiry woman with a potter's hands, showed up at the market with a stack of gingham napkins she'd sewn for my display. "You've got a gift, Maya," she said, her voice warm, no strings attached. His dad, Tom, built me a wooden stand for the booth, sanding it smooth while joking about Daniel's crooked tie at the wedding. They asked about my day, my plans, not my wallet. At their Sunday dinners, pot roast steaming, laughter bouncing off the walls, I felt seen in a way Mom and Dad never bothered to see me. It stitched up some of the holes they'd left, though the edges still frayed. I didn't hear from them directly, not after the letter. Radio silence, like I'd vanished from their orbit. But the grapevine hummed. Aunt Claire, Mom's sister, called in June, her voice tight with that meddling tone I knew too well. "Your parents are struggling, Maya. Sophie's been a handful, and the bills are piling up. They won't say it, but they miss you." I thanked her, hung up, and didn't call back. Miss me? They missed my money. If they'd missed me, they'd have shown up when it counted. Then the letter came. Late August, a humid night where the cicadas screamed outside our window. I found it in the mailbox, Mom's loopy cursive on the envelope, Maya Jane. No return address, like she didn't want me to send it back. I almost tore it up right there, but curiosity or masochism won. Inside, 2 pages of her pleading script. "Your father's too proud to say it, but we're hurting. The house payments are late, and Sophie's moved in with some boy who's no good. We didn't mean to hurt you, sweetie. Family sticks together. Please call." I read it twice, the words blurring as my pulse thumped in my ears. No sorry. No, we were wrong. Just more of their same old song, per them, needy them, my job to fix it. I crumpled it, marched to the kitchen, and lit the gas stove. The paper caught fast, orange licking up the edges, Mom's guilt trip curling into ash. I dropped it in the sink, watched it smolder, and felt lighter than I had in months. They didn't get to pull me back. Not now. Meanwhile, their world was cracking. I could feel it through the whispers. A cousin posted on Facebook about Sophie totaling Dad's truck, then flouncing off to crash with some tattooed guy in a band. Another relative mentioned Mom selling her garden club trophies at a yard sale, her face pinched with shame. Dad, I heard, was dodging calls from the bank, his temper shorter than ever. I didn't dig for details. I didn't need to. They built their lives on me, and without my scaffolding, the whole mess was tilting. By fall, Maya's Morsels had a rhythm. I quit the diner, rented a tiny storefront with peeling paint and a decent oven, and hung a sign Daniel carved himself. Opening day, Ellen brought flowers, Tom fixed a leaky sink, and a line snaked out the door. Locals, market regulars, even Pastor Jen from the wedding. I baked until my arms ached, the air sweet with sugar and possibility. That night, Daniel and I collapsed on the couch, flour in my hair, his hand tracing lazy circles on my back. "You're doing it," he said, voice low, proud. "Your thing, not theirs." I nodded, too tired to speak, but the truth sank deep. This was my foundation, brick by brick, dough by dough. No ultimatums, no empty chairs. Just me, standing on ground I'd claimed. Still, late at night, when the oven cooled and the world hushed, I'd catch myself wondering, did Mom cry when she wrote that letter? Did Dad's hands shake as he signed me out of their lives? The question stung, but I didn't chase them. I'd spent too long chasing them. Now, I had my own path, rough, uncharted, but mine. And as the year turned, I started to believe it might hold me up. 3 years after I burned Mom's letter, I stood in the doorway of Maya's Morsels, the real one, not the tiny starter shop with the leaky sink. This place was mine, bought with every scone sold, every late-night batch perfected. The brick facade glowed warm in the October sun, windows framed with flower boxes Ellen had planted with marigolds. Inside, the air hummed with coffee and cinnamon, the counter gleaming under pendant lights Daniel had wired himself. A chalkboard menu stretched across one wall, my handwriting listing specials, pumpkin spice bread, maple pecan tarts, sourdough that bites back. Customers milled around, locals in flannel, a mom juggling a toddler, an old guy who came every Tuesday for my rye. My rye. I'd made it. Not just scraping by, but thriving. Last month, the local paper ran a feature, From Hobby to Hotspot, Maya Pierce's Rise. They snapped me mid-laugh, apron dusted with flour, Daniel's arm around me. The reporter asked how I'd started, and I dodged the ugly truth. My parents ditched my wedding, so I ditched their bills with a vague, I needed a change. She didn't push, just scribbled notes about my rustic charm and small-town grit. The article framed me as some plucky underdog, which wasn't wrong, but it skipped the part where I'd clawed my way up from a hole they'd dug. That morning, I was behind the counter, boxing up a dozen rolls for Mrs. Grady, when the bell jingled and Aunt Claire walked in. Her gray curls were tighter than I remembered, her purse clutched like a shield. She hadn't called since that guilt trip chat 3 years back, and I hadn't reached out either. Blood doesn't mean obligation, not anymore. Maya, she said, voice clipped, eyes darting over the shop like she was pricing it. You've done well. Thanks. I slid the box to Mrs. Grady, nodded her out, then wiped my hands on my apron. Coffee? No, I won't stay. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I just saw your mother. They're in a bad way. Thought you should know. I froze, those sticky fingers curling into my palms. A bad way could mean anything with them. Broke, sick, dramatic. I didn't ask. Didn't want to. But Claire kept going, uninvited. Sophie took off with some musician, left them with nothing. The house is a month from foreclosure. Your dad's drinking again, worse than before. Linda's a wreck, selling off half their things. They won't say it, but they need you. Need me. The words landed like a punch, old and familiar. I stared at her, the hum of the shop fading to a dull roar in my ears. They needed me 4 years ago, Claire. They didn't show. Her lips thinned. They're your family, Maya. Mistakes don't erase that. Mistakes. I laughed, sharp enough to turn heads at the nearest table. They disown me. Roll me out like trash. I'm not their safety net anymore. She sighed, that heavy martyr sound Mom used to wield. I told them you'd say that. Just think about it. She left without another word, the bell clanging behind her. I didn't think about it, not the way she meant. But it stirred something, a memory I hadn't touched in years. I was 9, hair in lopsided pigtails, standing in our backyard with a construction paper card I'd spent hours on, my first award from school for some dumb spelling bee. I'd run home to show them, bursting with pride. Dad was grilling, Mom fussing over a table for Sophie's 5th birthday, streamers, a cake with pink roses, the works. I shoved the card at them, beaming. Look what I got. Dad barely glanced. That's nice, Maya. Help your sister with the piñata. Mom smiled, distracted, said, put it on the fridge later, sweetie, then turned back to Sophie's giggles. Later never came. The card ended up crumpled under a juice carton, forgotten. Sophie got a party. I got a shrug. That's how it always was, her spotlight, my shadow. I shook it off, kneading dough harder than I needed to, the rhythm steadying me. They'd sidelined me since I could walk, and I'd let them, until I didn't. Now, their mess wasn't my burden. I had my own life, one I'd built with sweat and sugar and people who stayed. Daniel noticed my mood that night. We were in our new place, A fixer-upper we'd bought 6 months back, all creaky floors and potential. He was sanding a bookshelf in the living room, sawdust clinging to his jeans, while I stirred soup on the stove. "You're quiet," he said, brushing his hands off. "What's up?" Claire came by. I kept stirring, the ladle scraping the pot. "Said Mom and Dad are falling apart. Sophie's gone, house is toast." Same old cry for help. He set the sandpaper down, crossed to me. "You're not going back, are you?" "No," I met his eyes, firm. "They made their bed. I'm not tucking them in." He nodded, relief flickering in his gaze, then pulled me into a hug that smelled of wood and him. "Good. You've got us now." Us. Him, Ellen, Tom, the bakery crew I'd hired, Jess with her tattoos, Miguel who burned every third batch but charmed every customer. My orbit had widened, and it didn't include them. Still, Claire's words gnawed at me. Foreclosure. Drinking. I pictured Dad's red-rimmed eyes, Mom's trembling hands, and felt a pang. Not guilt, but something softer, sadder. A ghost of the kid who'd wanted their pride. The gap kept growing. By spring, Maya's Morsels had a second location, a pop-up in the next town over. I was on my feet 16 hours some days, but the ache was the good kind, the kind that built something. Ellen threw a party for my 34th birthday. Lasagna, too much wine, a cake she'd baked using my recipe, grinning as she lit the candles. "You taught me this one, kiddo," she said, and I laughed until my sides hurt. No empty chairs, no ultimatums. Just love, messy and real. Rumors trickled in. Sophie's boyfriend dumped her, she'd crashed back home, then left again after a blowout. Dad pawned his tools, Mom's garden withered. I didn't call, didn't check. But late at night, rolling dough under the kitchen's lone bulb, I'd wonder how far they'd fall before they remembered me. Not as their daughter, but as the one they'd lost. The one who'd stopped catching them. The knock came on a Thursday evening in November, for years and change since the wedding I'd walked alone. I was in the kitchen of our fixer-upper, wrist deep in a batch of gingerbread dough, the house warm with cloves and molasses. Daniel was out back, tinkering with a shed he swore would be done by Christmas, though we both knew better. The radio crooned some old jazz tune, and I was humming along, lost in the rhythm of kneading, when the sound jolted me, 3 sharp raps, insistent, like someone who'd rehearsed it. I wiped my hands on a towel, flour smudging the hem of my sweater, and padded to the door. The porch light was off, damn bulb kept burning out, so I squinted through the peephole. 2 shadows, hunched and familiar, stood there, the taller one shifting weight like he'd rather be anywhere else. My heart thudded, a sick, heavy beat. I knew those silhouettes. Dad's broad shoulders, slumped now. Mom's nervous fidget, clutching her purse. For years of silence, and here they were, uninvited ghosts on my doorstep. I opened the door slow, the hinge creaking like a warning. Cold air rushed in, sharp against my skin, and there they were, Robert and Linda Pierce, looking like time had chewed them up and spit them out. Dad's hair was thinner, gray streaking what was left, his flannel stained and frayed at the cuffs. Mom's face was gaunt, her eyes red-rimmed under a knit had pulled low. They didn't speak at first, just stared, like I'd grown horns since they'd last seen me. I didn't invite them in. Didn't say a word. Let them stew in the quiet I'd learned to wield. "Maya," Mom finally whispered, her voice cracking like thin ice. Can we talk?" I crossed my arms, leaning against the frame. "You're here. Talk." Dad cleared his throat, a rough, phlegmy sound. "Let's not do this on the porch, huh? It's freezing." "It's my porch," I said, flat. "You've got 5 minutes." Mom's lip trembled, but Dad's jaw tightened, that old stubborn glint flashing in his eyes. "Fine," he muttered, then softer. "We're in trouble, Maya." "Bad trouble?" "We need your help." I didn't blink, didn't flinch. "What kind of trouble?" Mom jumped in, words tumbling fast. "The house foreclosure notice came last week. We're behind, way behind. Sophie, she took what we had left, ran off with that boy again. Your dad's knee's worse, he can't work. And she choked, tears spilling now. We've got nowhere to go, sweetie. We're begging. Begging." The word hung there, heavy as the dough on my counter. I studied them, Dad's hunched pride, Mom's desperate clutch on her purse, and felt something twist in my gut. Not pity, not yet. Just memory, sharp and unasked for. All those years I'd begged them, silently, with checks and late-night calls to see me, to care. And now here they were, roles flipped, hands out. Why me? I asked, voice steady despite the storm inside. You've got Sophie. Your golden girl. Dad snorted, bitter. Sophie's gone. Took off after she drained us dry. Car, savings, everything. She's not coming back. She never does, Mom added, soft, like it hurt to admit. We were wrong, Maya. About a lot. Wrong. For years too late, and that's all they had? I stepped onto the porch, shutting the door behind me, the cold biting through my socks. Wrong about what, exactly? Spell it out. Mom flinched, but Dad met my glare, his eyes hard despite the tremble in his hands. We should have been there. At the wedding. We didn't think. I didn't think it'd hit you like that. Sophie was a mess that week, crying about turning 25, and we just picked her, I finished, sharp. Like always. You didn't even call, Dad. No text, no sorry. You chose her cake over my day, then disowned me when I wouldn't pay for it. He looked away, jaw working like he was chewing gravel. I was mad, he grunted. You cut us off, Maya. After everything I did, I snapped, stepping closer, my breath fogging in the chill. I paid your mortgage, your doctor bills, Sophie's stupid whims. I gave up college, dreams, my own damn life to keep you afloat. And you couldn't give me 1 hour. You wrote me off, your words, not mine. Mom sobbed, a wet, messy sound. We were wrong, sweetie. So wrong. We miss you. We've missed you every day. Please, we're family. Family. I laughed, cold and jagged. Family doesn't ditch you at the altar. Family doesn't threaten to erase you over money. Where was family when I needed you? Dad's face crumpled, just for a second, before he masked it with a scowl. We're here now. Doesn't that count? We're swallowing our pride, asking for help. You've done good, real good. Can't you spare something? Spare something. Like I was a vending machine again, not their daughter. I thought of the bakery, the home Daniel and I had scraped together, the life I built without them. I thought of those empty chairs, Sophie's smug sparkler photo, the letter they'd typed to cut me loose. And I felt it, anger, yes, but under it, a tired, hollow ache. No, I said, quiet but firm. I can't. You don't get to show up now, after 4 years of nothing, and ask me to fix your mess. You made your choices. Mom reached for me, her hand trembling. Maya, please, don't. I stepped back, out of reach. Where's Sophie now? Why isn't she here, begging with you? She's not talking to us, Dad admitted, voice low. Haven't heard from her in months. So she bailed, and I'm your backup plan. I shook my head, the ache hardening into resolve. You didn't miss me. You missed my bank account. I'm not it anymore. Mom's knees buckled, and Dad caught her, his glare cutting through the dark. You're cold, Maya. Colder than I ever thought you'd be. Maybe, I said, meeting his eyes. Or maybe I just learned from you. The jazz floated faintly through the door, a lifeline to the warmth inside. I turned, hand on the knob, and paused. Why'd you really skip the wedding? Tell me the truth. Mom hiccuped, clinging to Dad. Sophie threatened to leave us, said she'd never speak to us again if we didn't stay. We were scared. Scared. Of losing her, not me. The truth stung, but it fit. I nodded, once, and opened the door. Good luck, I said, not looking back. You'll need it. They didn't call after me. Didn't knock again. I shut the door, locked it, and stood there, the gingerbread scent wrapping around me like a shield. My hands shook, but I didn't cry. Not yet. They'd come begging, and I'd turned them away. The gap was a chasm now, and I'd chosen to stand on my side. The door clicked shut behind me, a soft sound that felt final, like a book slamming closed after the last page. I stood there, back pressed to the wood, the gingerbread's warmth clashing with the cold seeping through my sweater from the porch. Mom's sobs echoed faintly outside, jagged and desperate, punctuated by Dad's low growl probably cursing me, the night, the mess they'd made. My hand shook, flour still caked under my nails, and for a second, I thought they'd knock again. Part of me, the old part, the kid who'd run to them with spelling bee cards, wanted them to. Wanted them to fight for me, not my money. Then Dad's fist hit the door. 3 hard thuds, rattling the frame. Maya, he bellowed, voice thick with booze and fury. You opened this damn door. We're your parents. You don't get to walk away. I flinched, instinct jerking me back, but I didn't turn the knob. His words clawed at me, familiar hooks trying to reel me in. I could picture him out there, red-faced, fists clenched like they'd been when I dared talk back as a teen. Mom's crying spiked, a keening wail. "Robert, stop, please." And I heard her tugging at him, her pleas dissolving into hiccups. My chest tightened, a knot of anger and something softer, something that hurt too much to name. 5 minutes are up. I called through the wood, my voice steadier than I felt. "Go home. Home." Dad laughed, a bitter, barking sound. "Ain't got one. Thanks to you. You think you're better than us now, huh? Big shot with your bakery and your husband, too good for your own blood." I slid down the door, knees to my chest, the floor cold against my socks. His words stung, but they didn't stick, not like they used to. "I'm not better," I said, loud enough to carry. "I'm just done. You had your chance 4 years ago. You picked Sophie. You picked yourselves. Not me." Silence, heavy and ragged. Then Mom, closer now, her voice muffled like she'd pressed her face to the crack. "We're sorry, Maya. God, we're so sorry. We didn't know it had come to this. Please, just a little help. We'll pay you back. I swear. Pay me back." I almost laughed, the sound catching in my throat like a sob. "With what? Sophie's stolen cash? Dad's pawn tools?" I thought of the checks I'd written, the nights I'd gone without so they could have more. I'd paid enough. "You can't," I said, soft but firm. "You never could." Dad pounded again, one sharp bang that made me jump. "You're heartless, girl. We raised you, and this is what we get. Thrown out like garbage. Heartless." The word snapped something loose, and I surged to my feet, yanking the door open so fast Dad stumbled back, Mom gasping beside him. The porch light flickered on. Daniel must have fixed it, and their faces glowed harsh in the yellow glare. "You want to talk heartless? You left me stranded at my wedding. You chose Sophie's tantrum over my vows. You wrote me off, disowned me, because I wouldn't bankroll your lives anymore. And now you're here, begging, because she's gone and you've got nothing left. That's heartless, Dad. That's you." He stared, mouth open, no comeback ready for once. Mom clutched his arm, tears streaking her cheeks, her knit hat slipping back to show gray roots. "We didn't mean it," she whispered. "The letter, the wedding, we were wrong. We see that now." "Now," I echoed, stepping onto the porch, the cold biting my bare arms. "Now that you're broke and alone. Where was sorry when I called you, crying, after the reception? Where was it when you signed that paper cutting me out? You don't get to rewrite it because you're scared." Dad's shoulders slumped, the fight leaching out of him. He looked old, older than 62, older than I'd ever seen him. "We messed up," he muttered, eyes on the warped boards under his boots. "I messed up. I thought you'd always be there. You were the strong one. The strong one." How many times had he said that, like it was a medal instead of a chain? I shook my head, the wind tugging at my hair. I was. Until I wasn't. "You forgot I'm a person, not a fix. I've got my own life now, one you don't fit in." Mom reached for me again, her fingers brushing my sleeve before I pulled away. "Don't do this, Maya. We're family. We can start over." "No." I cut her off, sharp, final. "You forgot me when it mattered. Now forget I exist. That's what you wanted, right? That's what you wrote." Her hand dropped, and she crumpled against Dad, sobbing into his chest. He wrapped an arm around her, glaring at me over her shaking frame. "You'll regret this," he said, low and hoarse. "When we're gone, you'll wish you'd helped." "Maybe," I said, meeting his stare. "But I regret more letting you use me for years. Goodbye." I turned, stepped inside, and shut the door, slow this time, deliberate, the lock clicking like a gunshot. Dad shouted something, muffled and furious, but I didn't catch it. Mom's wails faded as their footsteps crunched away, gravel scattering under their retreat. I sank to the floor again, back to the door, and let the silence settle. The jazz still played, soft and mournful now, the gingerbreads sent a faint comfort. My eyes burned, tears spilling hot down my cheeks, not for them, not really, but for the girl I'd been, the one who'd waited for them to show up. I swiped at my face, angry at the weakness, when the back door banged open. Daniel strode in, sawdust on his jeans, his face shifting from confusion to alarm as he saw me. "Maya." He dropped to his knees beside me, hands framing my face. What happened? They were here. I choked out, leaning into him. Mom and Dad. Begging. I told them no. He swore, soft and fierce, pulling me against his chest. His heartbeat thumped steady under my ear, grounding me as the sobs came harder. You did the right thing, he murmured, his lips brushing my hair. You're free now. Free. The word felt fragile, slippery, but I clung to it. I'd shut the door on them, on the guilt, on decades of giving too much. Daniel held me until the tears stopped, until the house was just us again, the storm outside fading to a distant hum. I stood, shaky but solid, and went back to the dough. It was cold now, overworked, but I needed anyway, letting my hands find their rhythm. They were gone. Really gone. And I was still here, standing tall on the other side of that chasm. The victory was quiet, bittersweet, but it was mine. 6 months after I shut the door on Mom and Dad, spring crept into our little corner of the world, soft and insistent. The marigolds in the bakery's window boxes bloomed again, their gold heads bobbing in the breeze, and the fixer-upper smelled of fresh paint instead of sawdust. I stood in the nursery we'd carved out of the spare room, one hand on my swollen belly, the other smoothing the edge of a crib Daniel had built. Oak, sturdy, sanded to a silk finish. 7 months pregnant, and I could feel her kicking, a tiny thump against my ribs that made me smile every time. Her. Our daughter. We hadn't picked a name yet, but I knew it wouldn't be Linda or Sophie. This was a fresh start, a clean slate. Maya's morsels hummed along, both locations bustling now. Jess ran the pop-up with her sharp wit and sharper knife skills, while Miguel had finally stopped burning batches, his grin winning over the morning crowd. I cut back my hours, trusting them to hold the fort, and it felt strange, good strange, to let go a little. The bakery wasn't just a job anymore. It was a legacy, proof I could build something lasting without breaking myself. That morning, I'd baked a single loaf of sourdough at home, the crust crackling as it cooled on the counter. Daniel snuck a slice, grinning through crumbs, and said, "Still the best thing I've ever tasted." I swatted him with a towel, laughing, and for a moment, life felt so full I could burst. They'd stayed gone, Mom and Dad. No more knocks, no letters, no pleas slipped under the door. Word trickled in through the family grapevine. Claire again, cornering me at the market with her pursed lips and pitying eyes. "They're scraping by," she'd said, voice low like it was a secret. "Renting a trailer out by the tracks. Your dad's sober, mostly. Linda's got a part-time gig at the dollar store. Sophie's still AWOL." I'd nodded, thanked her, and walked away, a bag of apples swinging at my side. Scraping by. It wasn't glee I felt, hearing that. Just a quiet, distant ache, like pressing a bruise that's almost faded. They were alive, surviving. That was enough. I didn't know them more. I thought about them less now, but when I did, it was different. Not the raw, jagged hurt of the wedding, or the burning fury of their begging. It was softer, sadder, a memory of what could have been if they'd ever seen me. Last week, I'd found an old photo in a junk drawer. Me at 6, gap-toothed and grinning, sandwiched between them at some fair. Dad's arm around me, Mom's smile wide and real. I'd stared at it, tracing their younger faces, then drove to the thrift shop and left it on the donation pile. No note, no fuss. Just a quiet goodbye to the family I'd wanted them to be. Ellen threw a baby shower that afternoon, turning their backyard into a riot of pastel streamers and laughter. Tom grilled burgers, smoke curling into the sky, while Ellen fussed over a cake, my lemon tart recipe, tweaked with her own flair. "You're the pro, but I improvised," she winked, and I hugged her, breathing in her clan lavender scent. Friends crowded around. Jess with a tiny tattooed onesie, Miguel juggling a gift bag and a beer, Pastor Jen with a quilt sheet sewn. Daniel hovered, proud and a little overwhelmed, his hand finding mine every few minutes like he needed the anchor. No empty chairs, no absences, just people who'd chosen me, who stayed. Later, as the sun dipped low, I slipped inside to Ellen's kitchen for a breather. The noise faded, leaving me with the hum of the fridge and the weight of my belly. I leaned against the counter, sipping water, when a shadow moved in the hall. Tom, his broad frame filling the doorway. He held a small box, wrapped in brown paper, and cleared his throat, awkward but warm. Meant to give this earlier, he said, handing it over. Ellen kill me if I made a fuss. I tore the paper, curious, and found a wooden sign. Lila's Bakery, carved in his steady hand, the letters painted a soft green. Lila? I asked, brow raised. He shrugged, sheepish. Heard you and Daniel tossing names around. Thought it sounded nice. You don't have to use it, just a thought. My throat tightened, tears prickling fast. Lila. It did sound nice, bright, unburdened. I hugged him, harder than I meant to, and he patted my back like I was breakable. Thanks, Tom, I managed, voice thick. It's perfect. Back outside, Daniel caught my eye across the yard, his grin softening as he saw the sign. He mouthed, Lila, and I nodded, testing it in my head. Lila Pierce, our girl, free of the baggage I'd carried. The party wound down, stars pricking the sky, and I sat with Daniel on the porch swing, the sign between us, his arm around my shoulders. You okay? He asked, his thumb brushing my collarbone. Yeah, I said, meaning it. Better than okay. That night, I lay awake. Daniel snores a soft rhythm beside me, Lila kicking like she knew I was listening. I thought about the trailer by the tracks, Mom's hunched figure behind a dollar store counter, Dad's sober days and shaky hands. I didn't hate them, not anymore. They'd lost me, lost Sophie, lost everything they'd taken for granted, and I couldn't carry that for them. But I could carry this, Daniel's steady love, Ellen and Tom's warmth, the bakery's hum, the life growing inside me. I'd broken the cycle, the one where love came with strings and worth was measured in dollars. The next morning, I baked again, cinnamon rolls this time, sticky and warm, the house filling with their sweetness. Daniel stumbled in, hair mussed, and stole one before I could protest, his kiss tasting of sugar in him. Lila's gonna love these, he said, and I laughed, picturing her tiny hands reaching for the tray. I looked out the window, the world waking up, birds chattering, the neighbor's dog barking, the marigolds nodding in the dawn. My family was here, in this house, in the life I'd built from scratch. Mom and Dad were a shadow, fading with every sunrise, and I let them go, not with anger, but with peace. I'd been their daughter once, but now I was Maya Pierce, wife, baker, soon-to-be mother. And as I rested a hand on my belly, feeling Lila move, I vowed she'd never know empty chairs or beg for love. She'd have me, whole and unburdened, every damn day. And that's the story of how I found my own family, my own peace, one loaf at a time. If Maya's journey resonated with you, hit that like button to let me know. It's like leaving a warm roll on my counter. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story about breaking free and building anew. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to shut a door to open a new one? I'd love to hear. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.